Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is for those people who have their natal Mars in conjunction with Pluto. Originally, I was going to combine it with Mars square Pluto as well as Mars opposing Pluto, and my suspicions were confirmed that even the conjunction can be challenging when I looked online at a website that was talking about these things, and they lumped all three together and said that they were challenging. But that website, I'm going to try to see if I can find that again. It was strange because it's called notesonastrology.com, and I couldn't find an author. Like there was no byline, so I thought that was really weird, unless they just compile people's opinions on astrology. But it's so funny because when I first plugged it into the search engine, I could see like a little what do you call it, like a teaser, when they show you the website, and it says, I always feel the greatest cringe when reading a woman's natal chart when I see it challenging. And then they have in parentheses opposition, square, conjunction, aspect between Mars and Pluto. Pluto's intensity and Mars' aggression combined in this manner very often leaves that woman vulnerable to physical and sexual violence at the hands of men. And so I was just curious if that person was a male or female that that wrote that, who said that it made them cringe, because I kind of like, I didn't realize that they were just talking about as an astrologer. I thought they were just talking about like if like a man looking at a potential partner's chart and then being like, uh-oh. So anyway, in finding information and Cafe Astrology, I want to give a shout out to that as well, because I did get some of the themes here from them, or a lot of them. I want to give a shout out to them, but because there was so much info just on the conjunction, I'm going to just leave it there, and I'm going to do separate videos for the square. Maybe I'll combine the square and opposition. So if for some reason you're listening to this just because, and you really have a square opposition, I will be doing that either separately or just combined. One way that we can look at these types of what we call, especially like with conjunctions, we can look at these as whatever the other planet represents in terms of what it rules. That can indicate what kind of planet and sign equivalent it would be. I know that sounds really clumsy. What I mean is, in this particular case, with the conjunction between Mars and Pluto, we have Mars. It's almost like having Mars in Scorpio, because Pluto rules Scorpio. And actually, Mars rules Scorpio too, so it's very interesting. And the thing that strikes me first and foremost is that you're dealing with two planets that, in and of themselves, are at the very least challenging. We could also say problematic, which goes along with challenging, but in Vedic astrology are called malefics. And if you really vibe with Vedic astrology, awesome. I am I'm leery about that, because there are positive traits with Mars in conjunction with Pluto, and Mars and Pluto, both, as planetary influences, have positive impacts, and it can have a positive impact on our lives. So we shouldn't be just acting like Venus and Jupiter are the only things that are going to give us good stuff in life. I mean, Venus and Jupiter can lull us into complacency and maybe even a false sense of security in a way. Somebody who has this combination, I think that they came into this world. It's almost like life is a battle in one way, shape, or form. Now, there might even be conditions beyond the family of origin that showcase this. So even living in a war zone, or if it's not a literal war that's going on with troops, it could be living in a gang infested area where life and death are always right, you know, being shoved right in your face. Because Mars is a god of war, and Pluto can deal with not only the seedy underbelly of life, including criminal behavior, but also violence and trauma. So these two elements have a certain ferocity as an influence, and they're coming together, they're joining. So when you have a conjunction, it's producing an effect that is enhanced, okay? And we look at the individual planets and what do they represent and how will they come together. It's kind of like when you're baking, or you're eating, you're cooking or something, and you decide to have chocolate, and you say, but you know what, I'm going to put a little vanilla in there. What is that going to taste like? It alters the taste. But if the vanilla is very like mild, it's going to just enhance it in a very subtle way. But in this case, we have two very strong elements that are coming together. And this is going to make the person have that kind of aura of strength. But it can also mean that the person has come from a environment where they have had to be strong. I initially put, for because I was going to combine all those different uh, aspects, and I was saying what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I feel like with the conjunction out of all of these challenging combinations, that it is the least challenging in the sense that the person is embodying this in a way that may work for them. So for instance, if you have a square, you have tension, you have conflict. If you have an opposition, you might have two opposing goals that are trying to find common ground, but they're like two sides of a magnet, and they're kind of repelling each other. And so in this case, we're talking about the person embodying these traits. So just like somebody who has Mars and Scorpio, for instance, this kind of person may have a lot of ambition, but I think that sometimes it can be so overweening or obsessive, over the top, that they can forget that other people are human beings too. So this could be the person that is like obsessed with success, and they'll do anything it takes to get where they are, depending on other factors. And we could look to see if Mars or Pluto are compromised by hard angles from other places. It can indicate that they may believe by any means necessary to get what they want. And, it's the thing is, in those particular cases, a person who does that can be rewarded by the society, because this society, especially the ones that are the most ambitious, the ones that celebrate that kind of attitude, they can reward these people. And you can almost say this is like a malignant narcissist who just does whatever they can to get ahead, and they're not thinking about who they're destroying in the process. We have to look at the conjunction, what signs what sign is at play here. And usually they're Mars and Pluto will be in the same sign, but not 100% of the time. Sometimes it'll be early one sign of one sign and late of another. But in general, they'll be the same sign. So let's say that the conjunction is in Pisces. Is that person going to be like that? No, but it actually could help somebody who is a Pisces, because whether the person, like, especially if person has a sun in Pisces, they may have come from very difficult childhood, and if they were abused at all, they may be able to be more self-empowered, where they don't take that from other people. Whereas someone else could be utterly destroyed by it. And part of the destruction can be becoming a perpetrator themselves. So one of the things that they said, which I can't say is going to be 100% accurate, and that site that I was just quoting before, the Notes of Astrology or whatever, was that women, tend to be these victims of a man's brutality, but that the man will be that kind of. They were talking about the man being that cutthroat type of ambition or what have you. And really, nowadays, women are so. I would say equally, if not sometimes more, represented in the workplace. So I could totally see a woman having those types of characteristics. And it's important to note that I'm not saying that every person with this conjunction has been the victim of abuse, but chances are you have had to deal with the issue of power in your life and what that has meant, and you're very aware of that. So in your own relationships, the power dynamics, who is, if you're in a romantic relationship and you're living together, you're married, what have you, who is, who makes more money, who is all of these things, who gets to call the shots. And you don't like somebody pushing you around. That is for sure. But it depends on, what if your Mars is in Aries? That conjunction is in Aries. That will be like steroids, and you really will be defiant. Or a fixed sign like Aquarius, that's also very rebellious. So you have to look at the Mars Pluto conjunction sign, as well as the sun and moon signs, to see how the person's emotional nature plays into things, and their sun sign for sure. Somebody who is a Libra sun sign, for instance, may believe, I was going to say, what if the Libra sun sign has this conjunction in Scorpio? But let's say they have a Libra who has a conjunction in Virgo. They might be somebody who is a little bit more, measured in their approach. They're not going to be, stepping over people. They believe in fairness. So that is super important to them. However, they may have a very, very much a steel spine, and they may have a very dogged pursuit of things, because that's one of the abilities here, is to be able to go after a goal almost obsessively. So not giving up. But the thing is that, if you do nod your head at that, you have to be careful, because sometimes something may not be for you and you want it anyway. And I often say this in private readings, if somebody has Mars in a fixed sign, and this is kind of what this represents, since it kind of goes along with Scorpio, there is this stubborn energy with this combination. But, anybody who has Mars in a fixed sign may have a tendency to just try to steamroll over the object of their desire, whether it's a person, place, or a person or place, a thing, I guess, to get what they want. And if they don't, if it doesn't happen, initially, they may double down and they just really are obsessed with having something. And that just kind of like comes across as, not having the ability to kind of yield, of just being that, steamroller. And I feel like that is not spiritual wisdom and has to be tempered. That you have to kind of see if the universe is agreeing with you, or if you want to say of God, whatever you want to call this higher power, if it's for you or not. So an example would be if you're attracted to somebody and you just keep trying to pursue them, and they might even come out and say I'm not interested, but regardless they might give you little hints, and you may be very perceptive and you know that they're trying to beg you off, but you feel like if I'm going to wear them down. And that could be like a violation of somebody else's will. So you can't impose your will on the universe or on your fellow man or woman. You have to temper that sometimes, especially with this combination. Okay. So another thing too is that you have strong endurance, and that's awesome because it can make you be able to work very hard. I would imagine that this might even translate to a strong immune system as well, because if you're very if you're able if you have like a lot of ability to work without getting tired, that means that you're not getting depleted, health wise. I mean, usually there's some hint at whatever it is that we're doing that is creating a negative effect on our body when we're working hard, even if you're working behind a desk and you're not like expending so much physical energy, you still might be doing so mentally. And this gives you that ability to keep going. Um, I didn't say this, but sexually, that could probably be the case as well, because this is a very sexy combination. It's funny that one of the sites I visit didn't seem like it really stressed that, but Mars can relate to the libido, and Pluto with sexual matters. But with Pluto, there's always like this dark edge to it. So the person with this combination, even with the conjunction, I would imagine, definitely with the challenging aspects, but even with the conjunction, may have had some background with sex, maybe prematurely, power violation sexually, somebody like imposing their will on you and taking advantage or what have you. And in this particular combination, this can lead to the femme fatale who's trying to. This is a perfect example where I feel like there's more of a constructive use of that. Even if there's abuse in the background, the person is able to feel more self-empowered as an adult. I was just recently doing I think it was my last video on Pluto in the eighth house, and it was kind of that similar theme. Um, and the point is that sometimes with sexual abuse, people go into the sex industry, or you could call it sex work. So whether it's prostitution, whether it's pornography, um, or I don't know, like those. I guess those are the big two ones that are out there. Or well, I was going to say like stripping, something like that, and they can feel like they are now empowered in what was once a situation where they were on the other side. But even if you don't go to that extreme, you may have that tendency, and it may just be something within you that you don't even realize is there. And I'm saying specifically with women, I'll explain in a moment how men can do this. But a woman who is, let's say she dresses provocatively and she wants to be the femme fatale, and she even may control men with sex, but not, outright be a hooker or anything like that. But she's still using her sexuality as a control mechanism to gain control over that man. And that might be in the way that she dresses. She might get breast implants or, to be the seductress. What is the point of being a seductress? You're either going to get paid or you're going to want to feel like you are in control, that you are, and sometimes it might even be a bit of revenge. This position, you have to work on your forgiveness. I didn't see them say outright revenge, but I'll just go there. I think that this could be like a vengeful position, and the person might feel that they are in the right, that, they have to be, the karmic payback machine, for everything that's been done to them or maybe even to others. And, or just even have like a punitive mentality about people who commit crimes in society and be like very much in favor of harsh punishment or something like that. And yeah, so these kinds of things have to be examined, because if you're not aware of them, you could be playing this unconscious role that you think that you're empowered, but you really aren't. Because being a sex symbol, to me, can only go so far. Because then you're going to be treated like you're portraying yourself. And so even if you're not charging for sex, you're going to be treated like a prostitute by that person. That person isn't going to see you. They're going to see you as a commodity. And then you're going to complain that you're being used, but you're, putting yourself in that position. So it just kind of like furthers that cycle of abuse if you're not careful. I mean, there might be examples of a woman who strips, and she does feel like totally empowered, and it's not something that she feels that she's trying to gain revenge over a man. She just, feels acclimated to that environment or that type of work. And maybe she does have that abuse in her background, but she has turned it into something healing, kind of like Chiron. So also, people who have Chiron in the eighth house, this can come up as a theme as well, and you might even have both. That would be really wild if you did. But the thing is, so I'm not saying that if somebody is I think it's actually more honest in a lot of cases for somebody to be a sex worker and having a price for their services than to be in a relationship and they have either an ulterior motive or they are just acting in an unconscious way, but they're manipulating. I think that's the thing that is the bad part about it, is that there can be this manipulation. And certainly with this combination, manipulation is something that you have to really make sure that you're not doing at any time, because again, to gain the upper hand, to have that power. And you might be, I shouldn't say you might, you probably will be a natural psychologist. And so you can get inside people's heads and know what makes them tick. And in that case, I mean, that could lead to the temptation to manipulate to get your way, because you do have a strong aura and other people are going to sense it, like you have this gravitas. And I don't know if this is going to date me, but I was just thinking of like that old commercial when E.F. Hutton talks, you listen or whatever, however it goes. But that thing about, somebody like coming into a room and other people are paying attention to that person, or at least noticing them because they have like that strong presence. and you probably have that, and you probably know it, and there's always that temptation to take advantage of that. Um, there's like a bit of a military type of a and I didn't see this, but I'm just assuming that that's what they meant. They might have said something about strategizing, but I think of the military, like the commander, in this combination where you can strategize behind the scenes or in secret. So you may be the kind of person who, if somebody says, "Are you going to do this or that?" you may kind of like flinch or kind of like draw back, like, "How dare you ask me?" This is very scorpionic. And, this is kind of like the tendency of Scorpio to be very secretive and yet somehow get everybody else to spill their guts. Um, and that kind of thing can be okay. You might even be able to find that it works for you in a lot of cases where you're planning behind the scenes and you take people by surprise, and it might work in the business world or what have you. But in personal relationships, I do think that you have to really look at these tendencies, because you may find that you don't want to have to answer to anyone, even telling them what you're up to. And when you're in a personal relationship, you can't just come and go as you please and live this secret life. You have to, to me, you have to be open with your partner about your whereabouts and your behaviors. And you just may get off on that kind of like, you're doing these things on your own in secret and you're not sharing them with somebody. And it might just feel like retaining. There's like a retentive quality with, I think, like Pluto, I would say. Pluto can relate to viruses and pathogens and germs and things like that. And this is why it's like, we talk about things on the surface, things that, you can look at something and then you put it under a microscope and you see all these like cooties. That's a real scientific term. And the other thing too with this is you make a great detective. So you make a great psychologist, just being able to really, stare into somebody else's, I don't know about soul, but their psyche, and also their motivations, which is part of psychology. But you're also great at ferreting out the truth by going after, finding out what's really going on. So even for somebody who's investigative reporter, so look at the third house for media, look at the sun sign, the Mercury sign, look to see the midheaven if you have Gemini or Virgo specifically, but there could be other placements. But that wanting to investigate what is beneath the surface, maybe there's a cover story, and you want to see what's really going on. So that professionally can be very helpful, researcher in general, or just like a good old fashioned private investigator. Um, but the obsession of getting to the bottom of things in your personal relationship, that could spell disaster, because you could be such a suspicious type of person. Especially, what if your sun is in Scorpio and you have like Venus and Scorpio and you have this combination? There's going to be there could be, well, I shouldn't say there's going to be, but there could be an overly suspicious nature that is accompanied by aggressive tendencies in this direction. So being very obsessive about that, being very controlling for the relationship, in the relationship too, can push that person away. So it's actually counterproductive. And this is not easily just, oh, okay, I'm going to just be different. I mean, again, if somebody is coming from a lot of abuse from their childhood. They may have to, go into therapy in order to unlearn some certain habits, patterns, um, mindsets. They may need another person to kind of like guide them into that, and somebody to really discuss all the things that have happened. Um, in milder cases, it can simply be um, catching yourself when you're in that mode and realizing what you're doing. I just made this realization that because my son is in the eighth house, that I had these tendencies myself in general that I never considered. And my moon is in conjunction with Pluto. So I have the sun and moon, they're scorpionic as a Sagittarian sun sign. And this is where it gets tricky because you may have a sun sign that's all light and fluffy like Gemini, and you may be in denial over this tendency that you have. Maybe it only flares up in love relationships, and everything else you're able to be detached enough not to, you know, put that out there, that real intense side of yourself. But regardless, I mean, knowledge is power. So knowing about this can be the first step in really kind of looking at it. Like, I laugh at myself now when I see myself doing it, but it's such a habitual thing. I would have to really make a concerted effort not to, be suspicious and realize, I don't have to know everything. I don't have to play Nancy Drew every day. So that's something that you may have to temper within yourself. And again, if it's going to be on the spectrum. Some people it's not going to be that big of a deal, but for some people this is a continuous pattern that has led to broken relationships. And if that's the case, and if you feel powerless over it, then by all means, try to find some answers with working with somebody where you can, kind of discuss everything that has happened and get that perspective. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it there. But anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this. If you would like to work with me, I'd love to look at your natal chart. And speaking of which, we're talking about deep diving. I just created two readings. They're separate readings, but they're combined as one: an hour-long natal chart reading, an hour-long transit reading, for a special price, for quite a discount. So that is a link that I'll provide below, but I have other readings on that site as well. Thank you for listening if you're still here. I mean, it's been over 30 minutes, and take care. Bye.